Only the soft patter of rain returned, steady and real. Clara lay on the floor, gasping, every nerve aflame. When she lifted her trembling hand, the glow beneath her skin was gone. Only the burn remained. She sat there for a long time, surrounded by darkness and debris, the smell of scorched metal thick in the air. Finally, she rose and looked toward the screen below. The torn fabric was blackened, burned clean through the center. Behind it, the faintest trace of light pulsed once more, not gold this time, but soft white, gentle, almost peaceful. It wasn't gone, it was waiting, and as Clara stared down into that ghostly glow, she realized the terrible truth Jonathan Rains had never written in his ledger. The light didn't just remember what it touched, it became it, and now part of her lived inside the Liberty, forever bound to the story she had unsealed. The storm outside broke into silence. Inside, the last flicker of light on the scorched screen shivered and took the faint shape of her silhouette. The morning came too soon. Clara sat at the kitchen table of her small rental house, the curtains drawn tight against the daylight. The world outside carried on like nothing had changed. Cars passing, children on bicycles, the distant hum of life that felt foreign to her now. Her hands, still marked by faint burns, trembled as she poured coffee she wouldn't drink. Every time she blinked, she saw it again, the explosion of golden light, the faces inside it, Rains whispering, "Close the circuit." But she hadn't closed anything. The light was still inside the Liberty, and somewhere deep inside, she could still feel it, a pulse that wasn't hers. On the table lay the gold bar, wrapped in a towel. It glowed faintly even through the cloth, a heartbeat she could see in rhythm with her own. She'd tried to leave it there, to walk away, to pretend it was just metal. But she couldn't. It called to her, subtle, persistent, alive. The knock came just before noon. 3 sharp raps against the door. Clara froze. No one knocked like that. Not friends, not neighbors. She moved slowly, quietly, peering through the peephole. Leland Shaw stood on the porch. He looked exactly the same, no exhaustion, no bruise, no evidence of the chaos from the night before. His clothes were dry, pressed, as if time hadn't passed for him at all. She didn't open the door. He smiled faintly through the glass. "You've been busy, Miss Reese." Her voice was thin when it finally emerged. "How did you find me? Some things don't need to be found," he said softly. "They follow their source." Her pulse pounded. "You need to leave. You took something that doesn't belong to you." His tone remained calm, conversational. "You should give it back." Clara glanced at the towel, wrapped shape on the table. It was buried, forgotten. "Not forgotten," he said, "protected." She gripped the edge of the door. "Whatever this is, it's not yours." He tilted his head, that faint, unnerving smile returning. "That's where you're wrong. It belongs to us, to the ones who remember what Rains built. You broke the seal. You made yourself a part of it." Clara's breath caught. "You were there when he built it, weren't you?" Shaw's eyes glinted. "I was there when he failed." The weight of those words filled the air between them. "Let me in," he said quietly, "before this gets worse." Clara stepped back, shaking her head. "No," he sighed. "You really don't understand what you've unleashed." He slipped a folded piece of paper through the mail slot, its edges charred like it had already been through fire. "You have until tonight. Meet me at the Liberty. Bring what you took, or they'll come for it instead." And then he was gone. No car started outside. No footsteps faded away. Just silence. Clara waited a full minute before opening the door. The porch was empty, the street deserted. Only the note remained on the floor. She picked it up with trembling fingers. The handwriting was precise, old-fashioned, like something from another century. "Return it before the light turns." Beneath the words, a faint outline of the sunburst emblem. Clara pressed a hand to her forehead, trying to think, to breathe. The air felt too thick. The hum inside her, that faint rhythm she tried to ignore, grew stronger. She could almost hear it now, like a low frequency running beneath the world's sounds. That night, she tried to rest, but sleep refused her. Images danced behind her eyes, flickers of the Liberty alive again, its halls glowing, gold seeping through the cracks in the floorboards. She heard Rain's voice, then Shaw's, overlapping until they became one. Light never dies, until it's fed. She jolted awake. The clock read 2:37 a.m. The gold bar still sat on the table. Only now, it wasn't glowing faintly. It was shining. Bright, pure, silent light poured through the towel, casting long, moving shadows across the walls. Clara stepped closer, eyes wide. No. The fabric began to smolder. She yanked it away, and the gold's surface pulsed each beat, sending a shimmer through the room like ripples in water. Her reflection in it wasn't still. It moved slower, smoother, smiling when she didn't. She stumbled back, knocking over a chair. "What do you want?" she whispered. The reflection tilted its head, her head, but not hers. Its lips moved, forming words she could barely comprehend. "Return the light." A faint sound rose in the distance, the hum of the Liberty. She shouldn't have been able to hear it from here, but she could. It was alive again, calling her home. She grabbed her coat, her car keys, her flashlight. The gold bar she wrapped in a thick blanket this time, shoving it into a box. Outside, the air was thick with fog. Streetlights glowed like drowned lanterns. The drive to the theater felt longer than it ever had before, as though the town itself had stretched, its streets bending in quiet, unseen ways. When she reached the Liberty, the neon sign, dead for decades, flickered weakly. The letter L buzzed in and out, leaving only Liberty, as if the word were mocking her, a promise that had long since lost its meaning. The door was already unlocked. Clara pushed it open slowly, stepping into the dark lobby. The smell of rain and dust filled the air. The walls trembled with that same heartbeat hum, faint but unmistakable. On the stage a single light burned, and beneath it, Leland Shaw stood waiting. He wasn't alone. Behind him, shapes moved, translucent figures, faint and shimmering, flickering in and out of visibility like bad film. Dozens of them, some in suits, some in uniforms, men and women caught between light and matter, their faces frozen mid-expression, half remembered by time. Clara's voice was barely a whisper. "What did you do?" Shaw smiled. "I didn't do anything. You did. The seal was never meant to be opened. You let the light breathe again. You freed them." He gestured toward the box in her arms. "Bring it here." Clara clutched it tighter. "You want it so badly. Tell me what it is first." He sighed. "You wouldn't understand. Try me." Shaw's eyes gleamed in the golden glow. "It's memory, not of people, but of power. Dawnlight wasn't gold, it was a vessel. The bars you see are crystallized energy, human consciousness made tangible. Rains tried to turn it into currency. Instead, he made immortality." Her stomach twisted. "You're saying these spirits, are what's left of those who touched it?" He finished. "Greed leaves an echo, Miss Reese, and now you've joined the chorus." The figures behind him stirred, faint outlines turning their hollow faces toward her. Clara took a step back. "You can't control it." Shaw smiled faintly. "Control, no, but I can guide it. I've done it before." She realized then that was why he hadn't aged. The light had preserved him. Fed him. Her grip on the box tightened. "Then you'll never have it again." And she turned and ran. Shaw's voice followed her, calm, unhurried, inevitable. "You can't run from what's inside you." Clara sprinted through the lobby, the hum rising behind her into a living roar. The walls shimmered, the floors breathing light. The Liberty was alive again, and it wanted her back. As she reached the doors, they slammed shut on their own. The last thing she saw before the darkness swallowed her was Shaw stepping into the beam of golden light, his smile glowing like a man finally returning home. and above them, the projector whirred to life. The Liberty was ready for its final show. The air inside the Liberty thickened until it felt like she was breathing through glass. The projector roared to life above, the sound trembling through the walls, shaking loose dust that fell like ash. The beam of light cut through the air in golden shafts, painting every surface in its haunted glow. Clara turned toward the doors, but they refused her, sealed tight, shuddering under invisible pressure. The handles burned when she touched them, heat radiating from within the brass. The building was closing itself. From the stage, Leland Shaw stood bathed in that unnatural light. His shadow didn't match his body anymore. It moved on its own, flickering, shifting, sometimes larger, sometimes smaller. The air around him warped, as though the light itself bent in his presence. "You don't understand what you're holding." He called to her, his voice echoing with strange resonance. Dawnlight was never a curse. It's salvation. Clara backed away, clutching the box tighter. The gold bar inside felt like it was burning through the blanket, its heat pulsing against her ribs. "You call this salvation? Look at them." She pointed to the flickering shapes behind him. Dozens of spectral forms hovered in the golden haze, each one frozen mid-motion, their mouths open as though caught in endless silent screams. Shaw didn't even glance at them. These are remnants, fragments of what was left when the human mind touched eternity. They didn't die, Clara. They were refined. "They're trapped," she said, her voice cracking. "You trapped them, you and Rains." He smiled faintly, the corners of his mouth twitching upward like a man savoring a long awaited truth. "Rains thought he was saving them. I knew better. You can't destroy light, Miss Reese. You can only contain it, or let it consume you." She took another step back. "Why me?" "Because you opened the seal. You completed the circuit." His gaze flicked toward her pocket. "You bear the mark now. The system recognized you as its next keeper." Her mind raced. The warmth in her veins, the glow beneath her skin, the way the light had responded to her touch. She had felt it, but refused to name it. Now, standing here beneath that golden beam, she understood. She had become part of the mechanism. The floor beneath her vibrated softly, a low, living hum. The walls shimmered with the faint outline of sunburst symbols, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. She whispered, "I didn't ask for this." Shaw spread his hands, stepping closer to the stage's edge. "Neither did Rains, but he built something eternal, something that will outlive both of us. You can fight it, or you can take your place within it." Clara shook her head, her breath quick and shallow. "No, I'm ending it." She threw open the box, light spilling out in a blinding flare. Shaw winced, shielding his face, but his laughter came through the brilliance, soft, delighted, almost tender. "You think you can kill light?" She reached into the box and grasped the bar with both hands. It burned her skin, but she didn't let go. The glow crawled up her arms, turning her veins into golden rivers. "Maybe I can't," she said through clenched teeth, "but I can bury it again." Shaw's smile faltered. "Don't." Clara spun toward the staircase leading to the basement vault. The hum beneath the floor rose to a thunderous vibration, the theater trembling like a creature waking from sleep. Behind her, Shaw's voice grew sharper, frantic. "You don't know what you're doing." She didn't stop. Each step felt heavier, like wading through invisible resistance. The air thickened with static, the golden light chasing her down the corridor, reaching for her. The floorboards beneath her feet glowed faintly with each step, leaving footprints of light that faded slowly behind her. She reached the metal door to the hidden stairwell and tore it open. The passage below still shimmered faintly from the last time she'd descended. Gold dust suspended in the air like slow, falling snow. She ran. The hum grew louder with every step, pressing against her eardrums, vibrating through her bones. At the bottom, the vault waited. The crates glowed now, their seams splitting as beams of light leaked out, spilling across the floor in liquid gold. The projection of Jonathan Rains appeared again, clearer than before, his eyes bright, voice low but urgent. "Close the circuit," he said. She stumbled toward the center of the room. "Tell me how," she shouted. "By giving it what it's missing." The ground shook, a deep metallic groan reverberating through the walls. Behind her, Shaw's voice echoed down the stairs. "Stop this. You'll destroy everything." Clara turned. He was halfway down, his outline glowing faintly now, the same golden light threading through his skin. His shadow no longer followed him. It moved in front of him, pulling him downward like an anchor. He reached out a hand. "Clara, listen to me. If you close it, the light will take you too." Her hands tightened around the bar. "Then maybe that's the point." She lifted it above her head, the glow flooding the chamber. The gold in the crates responded, pulsing in unison. Rain's projection flickered violently, his voice dissolving into static. Shaw screamed, lunging forward. "Don't!" The light burst outward in a wave so bright it erased color, sound, and shape. For a long moment there was nothing, then silence. When Clara opened her eyes, the chamber was dark. The glow had vanished, the crates were gone, the gold bar in her hands had cooled, its shine reduced to dull metal. Shaw lay on the floor, motionless. His face looked young, too young, his body rigid and pale. The faint outline of the sunburst symbol was burned into his chest, glowing dimly once before fading. Clara dropped the gold bar, her breath ragged. The silence pressed against her until she could no longer tell if the hum was gone or if it had simply moved inside her. Slowly, she climbed the stairs back to the surface. The Liberty was quiet again, its air stale and cold. The projector hung lifeless, the torn screen sagging. Everything looked ordinary, dead even. She stood in the middle of the auditorium, chest rising and falling with slow, shaky breaths. Outside, dawn was breaking through the fog, washing the cracked marquee in silver light. And yet, as she turned toward the exit, a faint shimmer caught her eye, a reflection gliding across the glass door. Her own reflection, but it smiled when she didn't. For a long time she stared at it, waiting for it to fade. It didn't, and then, faintly, from somewhere deep beneath the floorboards, she heard it again, that low, pulsing hum. It wasn't gone. It had simply changed hosts. Clara closed her eyes, a single tear tracing down her cheek. As the sun rose over the town, the Liberty stood silent, once more its heart calm, its secret buried again. For now, morning broke without sound. The world outside felt drained of color, as if even daylight feared to enter the Liberty. The fog still hung low, soft and unmoving, curling around the theater's broken marquee. Inside, the silence wasn't peace, it was aftermath. Clara Reese stood at the foot of the stage, her reflection faintly visible in the blackened screen above her. Dust shimmered in thin streaks of light through the cracked windows. Her hands, blistered and bruised, trembled as she reached up and touched the surface of the screen, the same screen that had once burned with living gold. It was cold now. The night before was a blur, a storm of sound, light, and terror, collapsing into an instant of absolute stillness. She could barely remember the moment the vault sealed again. Only the look on Shaw's face, frozen in disbelief, his eyes glowing like twin suns before the light devoured him. He was gone. The vault was closed. And yet, she knew it wasn't over. Something inside her still pulsed, faint but constant. The hum that had filled the theater now lived beneath her skin. She could feel it when she touched metal, when she blinked into light, when she tried to rest. It was as if the dawnlight had marked her permanently. She whispered to the empty theater, "It's over." Right? The air didn't answer. She glanced at the gold bar lying near the first row, the one that had survived the collapse of the vault. It was dull now, stripped of its impossible glow, but she couldn't bring herself to touch it again. It felt like holding someone's heartbeat in her hands. Instead, she walked toward the old projector. Its body was cracked, its lens shattered from the blast, yet something deep inside it still hummed faintly, a whisper of current, a ghost of power. Clara hesitated, then placed her palm over the cooling brass surface. The hum beneath her skin aligned with the one in the machine, like two notes finding harmony. A spark jumped. The projector groaned to life with a single, reluctant churn of its motor. Dust spiraled into the beam that cut through the booth's cracked window. But there was no reel inside, no film, no image, no reason for the light, and yet the beam didn't stop. It hit the screen, and where it struck, faint words began to appear, burned slowly into the fabric like handwriting made of fire. Clara stepped closer, her heart pounding. Operation Dawnlight Sequence 1. Preservation Protocol. The letters burned brighter, then dissolved, replaced by flickering images. Not ghosts this time. Film, actual film, footage of men in suits and lab coats, government insignias, military warehouses, trucks being loaded under floodlights, every frame sharp, deliberate, official. She stood frozen, eyes wide. It wasn't just history, it was evidence. Rains, she whispered, you filmed everything. The camera panned to a large storage room filled with crates identical to the ones she'd found beneath the theater. A voiceover crackled faintly through the static, male and measured Rains himself. Dawnlight represents the future of preservation, of memory, of power, of identity itself. The human mind, when captured through the lens, can be refined, crystallized, made eternal. Clara felt her throat close. No. The footage continued, a laboratory, bodies connected to wires and glowing chambers. A man convulsing as golden light consumed his outline, scientists shouting, shielding their eyes. We are close, Rain's voice continued. The light stabilizes consciousness. The host remains aware even after physical death. We have transcended mortality. Clara stumbled backward, shaking her head. You turn people into light. The film shifted again, a test chamber. Shaw stood beside Rains now, both wearing dark goggles. They watched as another subject, a woman, sat calmly under a hanging bulb. The light grew brighter, brighter, until her form flickered out completely. When the glare faded, only her shadow remained burned into the wall behind her. Rains spoke again, his tone lower, shaken. The containment is unstable. The subjects retain emotion, memory, will. We cannot distinguish between illumination and possession. Then Shaw's voice joined his, younger, sharper, but already carrying that same cold detachment. You're not witnessing possession, Jonathan. You're witnessing evolution. The sound cut out. The image froze on Shaw's face, eyes half-lidded, lips curled in that same unsettling smile Clara had seen the night before. Then the footage jumped. A new date flashed. July 17, 1953, the golden premiere, the final night. The image stabilized to show the Liberty Theater, brand new, glittering with gold. Guests entering in evening wear, unaware they were stepping into history's darkest experiment. The camera panned toward the projector booth, where Rains stood adjusting dials, sweat gleaming on his forehead. Initiate Dawnlight Sequence, Shaw's voice commanded. Rains hesitated in the frame. It's not ready. Shaw leaned closer to him, his expression calm, confident. Neither were we. The film jumped again, the screen went white, then chaos, the audience screaming, light bursting from the projector like fire. The ceiling collapsing. Frames melting together, fire, smoke, and Rain's hand reaching toward the lens before the reel snapped. And then the final image. The Liberty in ruins. Rain's voice whispering through static. If this reaches the wrong hands, let the light sleep. The screen went black. The projector hummed once, then stopped completely. Clara stood trembling in the silence that followed. Her mind raced, the truth too vast to contain. Operation Dawnlight hadn't been about stolen gold. It was about stolen souls, about the attempt to preserve human consciousness and the greed that turned it into imprisonment. Rains hadn't hidden treasure. He had buried witnesses, and she had just reopened their tomb. Her reflection in the darkened screen looked back at her older now, eyes hollow but glinting with faint gold beneath the pupils. She touched her face. "What did you do to me?" The air shifted behind her, a faint movement, like a breeze through closed doors. She turned sharply, her pulse spiking. There, in the faint light of the booth, stood a shadow. Not Rains, not Shaw, someone else, a woman's silhouette. The same shape she had seen burned into the wall of the film, the test subject who had vanished into light. The voice came soft, distorted, beautiful. "You opened it, now help us finish it." The room dimmed, the glow from the projector fading into a deep, warm gold. The woman stepped forward, her form flickering between light and body. Her face was calm, but her eyes were endless. "We are the reflection," she whispered, "and you are the source." Clara's knees weakened, the words burrowing into her chest like truth she'd always known. The light began to move again, crawling up the walls, spilling across the screen. Images of faces, hundreds, filled the room, all looking at her, all whispering her name. She staggered backward, pressing herself against the cold metal of the booth. No, she breathed no more. But the light had already found her. And this time it wasn't asking permission. The projector flared, flooding the Liberty with golden fire. And the story of Operation Dawnlight, the secret Rains tried to bury and Shaw tried to claim, awakened fully, ready to be seen again. The light was everywhere. It poured through the cracks in the walls, flooded from the seams of the projector, and shimmered through the dust that hung in the air like particles of memory. Clara shielded her face with one arm, but there was no hiding from it. It was inside the room, alive and aware. The woman's voice still echoed in her head, soft but commanding. "We are the reflection, and you are the source." Clara stumbled backward, her heel catching on a step, sending her sprawling against the booth wall. The air burned cold. The golden glow pulsed against her eyelids even when she closed them. Each pulse matched her heartbeat. She could feel it sinking, binding. When she opened her eyes, the light wasn't light anymore, it was memory. The faces that filled the air were no longer faint silhouettes. They had depth now, clarity, expression. Dozens of men and women, flickering in and out of existence like film frames, stitched too quickly together. Some wore lab coats, some military uniforms, others formal suits from another era. All of them looked alive, and every pair of eyes was fixed on her. "You released us." A man's voice whispered, "You woke us." Another murmured, "Finish what Rains began." A chorus of voices layered, haunting, beautiful, wrong. Clara pressed her hands over her ears, shaking her head. "No, I didn't mean to, I just wanted to stop it." The woman's voice again, closer now, warm and calm like a mother soothing a frightened child. "You can't stop light. You can only choose what it reveals." The words sank into her bones. The woman stepped forward, her form stabilizing into a figure almost solid, now the same test subject from the film, the one who had vanished during the Dawnlight experiment. Her features flickered with light bleeding through her skin, veins of gold under translucent flesh. "You shouldn't exist." Clara whispered, "You were burned away." The woman smiled faintly. Burned or refined, the room trembled. The air thickened, pressing inward, suffocating. The projector began to whirl faster, the film it shouldn't have running through its reels with mechanical precision. The screen below came alive again, but it didn't show old footage anymore. It showed Clara. She froze. On the screen, her image stood exactly as she was now, hands trembling, eyes wide. But her reflection on the screen moved first. its motions deliberate, detached. The reflection smiled. Clara didn't. No, she breathed. No, this isn't real. The reflection stepped closer on the screen, the camera view tilting slightly as if it were walking toward her. You see it now, the other Clara said, her voice echoing from the speakers above. The truth Rains found, the truth Shaw tried to steal. Stop it, Clara screamed, slamming the side of the projector. The machine sparked, but the reel kept spinning, relentless. You are the bridge. Her reflection continued. The vessel, the final host. The light swelled again, forcing Clara to her knees. The air vibrated like 1,000 overlapping voices. Beneath the sound, faintly, she heard Rain's voice again, a recording buried inside the chaos. If the light finds a pure source, it will stabilize. One soul to contain the many. Clara's heart pounded. You mean me? Rain's voice continued, calm and desperate at once. If it doesn't, it will consume everything. The chamber beneath the theater answered his warning with a deep, resonant growl. The ground shook. The entire building vibrated. A fissure split across the back wall, leaking light like molten gold. Clara staggered to her feet. The woman, the golden figure, turned her gaze toward it, expression serene. The vault is waking. The crack widened, spilling golden streams across the floor. The air filled with a low, frequency hum that made the windows shiver. Every image on the screen warped and twisted, their faces distorting into screams. Clara's reflection on the screen began to convulse. Its body flickered in and out, a flicker of shadow and light, twisting violently into something monstrous. Stop, Clara shouted. Stop, please. The projector roared, its gears grinding like an engine at the brink of collapse. Sparks erupted from its base. The woman turned back to her, eyes filled with sorrow. It's not punishment, it's release. I don't want to be a part of this, Clara cried. The figure stepped forward, reaching out a glowing hand. You already are. When the fingers brushed Clara's cheek, a flood of visions slammed into her mind. She saw Rains in his lab, watching his first test subject dissolve into pure light. She saw him sobbing afterward, whispering I'm sorry. She saw Shaw standing over him years later, convincing him to continue, promising glory. Then the premiere, the night everything burned, the audience screaming as the experiment expanded beyond control. Rains slamming switches, trying to shut the system down, Shaw smiling as the golden fire spread. Then the vault, the burial, Rains sealing the chamber, whispering prayers to the light he had created. Sleep, he said, until the world is ready to see itself. And finally, Clara buying the abandoned theater, standing in that same booth 70 years later, unknowingly opening the same door Rains had sealed with his dying breath. The vision snapped. Clara fell to her knees, gasping, sobbing, clutching her head. No more, she whispered, please, no more. The woman knelt beside her, glowing faintly. It's not more, she said softly. It's all, and it's yours now. The light began to gather, swirling, converging every face, every shimmer, every fragment of memory drawn toward Clara like water into a drain. She screamed, but there was nowhere to run. The light poured into her through her eyes, her mouth, her skin filling her veins with fire. Her body arched, her scream lost in the sound of 1,000 voices merging into one. Then silence. The projector stopped. The beam faded. The golden dust hung suspended midair, motionless. Clara lay on the floor of the booth, chest heaving, her skin glowing faintly beneath the thin fabric of her shirt. The woman's voice returned not aloud, but inside her mind. You did what he couldn't. You completed it. Clara lifted her head weakly, eyes burning gold in the dark. What am I now, the keeper of light? Below, the Liberty trembled once more, but this time the glow didn't threaten to consume. It pulsed steadily, calmly, like the rhythm of a living heart. Clara stood slowly, staring at her reflection in the glass window of the booth. The woman's silhouette, Wet appeared behind her, smiling softly. Rains built the prison, the voice said. You turned it into sanctuary. Tears slipped down Clara's cheeks. She whispered, then let them rest. The woman nodded, they already have. The glow faded gradually from her veins, the gold dimming into a warm, steady shimmer beneath her skin, not dangerous now, but protective. The projector clicked one last time, projecting a single phrase onto the screen below in faint, golden letters, "Dawnlight complete," and then the beam died. The Liberty fell still. For the first time in 70 years, the building was quiet, not dead, not haunted, just still. Clara stood alone in the booth, breathing softly, the afterglow of the light fading into dawn. She whispered to the silence, "Rest now, Jonathan." Somewhere beneath the floor, a low echo answered not words, just warmth. And as she walked toward the door, the first rays of morning broke through the cracked marquee, spilling real sunlight through the lobby. For the first time, the Liberty's light belonged to the living again. It had been 3 days since the light went quiet. The Liberty Theatre stood silent on the corner of Broad and Ash, its windows boarded, its doors locked with fresh bolts Clara had installed herself. The neon sign no longer flickered, the air no longer hummed. From the outside, it looked like an ordinary ruin again, forgotten, harmless. But inside, beneath layers of dust and plaster, the gold still slept. Clara sat on the front steps, staring at the sunrise bleeding through the morning haze. Her face looked drawn, older. The light beneath her skin had dimmed, but it hadn't gone. Sometimes, in the quiet moments, she could still feel it stir a low pulse deep in her chest, reminding her that it never truly left. The world outside had resumed its rhythm. The town's traffic murmured in the distance. Someone laughed from a cafe across the street. Life had moved on, as though the past 70 years hadn't just unfolded again in her hands. She wanted to believe it was over. She told herself that every morning that the light had faded, that Rains and Shaw and the echoes of their greed were gone. But at night, when she closed her eyes, she saw them still. The faces in the gold. The woman who'd said, "You're the source." Sometimes, when she whispered a question into the dark, she swore the air shimmered faintly, as if the Liberty was still listening. Today, she wasn't alone. A figure stood on the sidewalk across the street, watching her, not menacingly, just observing. He wore a tan jacket, carried a messenger bag, and had the weary posture of someone who'd spent too long following questions. He raised a hand in a cautious wave. "Clara Reese." She turned slowly, wary. "Who's asking?" He crossed the street, stopping a few feet away. "Name's Daniel Harper. I'm with the Chronicle, Investigative Division." He hesitated before adding, "You've been hard to reach." Clara sighed, rubbing her temples. "I've been busy, trying not to lose my mind." Daniel nodded. "I heard about the theater. Some locals said you bought it, tried restoring it. Then they said there was a fire again." She looked past him toward the boarded windows. There was no fire. He studied her quietly, pulling a notepad from his bag. Then what happened? She didn't answer. The truth was too heavy, too wild, too dangerous to put into words. He took a slow step closer. "I know that name Rains. We've been digging into old files for years. Wartime gold, missing shipments, a classified operation called Dawnlight. Every trail ended here. You've seen something, haven't you?" Clara's breath caught. "That word, where did you hear it?" He flipped open his notes, revealing black and white photographs, the same symbols, the same sunburst emblem. "You're not the only one looking for answers, but you're the only one still standing who's been inside." The air between them tightened. "I don't know what you think you'll find," she said softly, "but you won't like it." He tilted his head. "Try me." Clara looked down at her hands. In the pale light of dawn, she could see it again, the faint shimmer beneath her skin. like gold dust caught in motion. Some truths don't want to be told. That's not for the truth to decide, Daniel said quietly. That's for us. She almost laughed, a dry, exhausted sound. That's what Rains thought too. It didn't end well for him. Daniel studied her expression, something shifting in his eyes, empathy, maybe, or fear. What did you see, Clara? Her voice lowered. Everything. The silence that followed felt sacred, heavy. After a moment, she reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small, metallic fragment, the edge of a gold bar, cracked clean through the middle. She handed it to him. He took it carefully. This is real, she finished. But not what you think. It's not treasure. It's not currency. It's memory, captured, refined, imprisoned. Daniel frowned, turning it in his hand. You mean? I mean people, she said. Dozens, maybe hundreds. Their minds, their voices, they're all inside it. The gold holds them like film holds light. He stared at her, searching for disbelief but finding none. You have to show me. I can't. Then tell me. She hesitated, her voice trembling when it finally came. The truth isn't buried in history. It's buried in us. You start digging, and you'll wake it again. Daniel studied her face for a long time. I think it's already awake. A chill passed through her at his words. The wind picked up, rustling the old posters still clinging to the Liberty's outer wall. He tucked the gold fragment into his pocket. If you change your mind, my office is in Cedar Grove. We're publishing something next week. Rains, sure, Operation Dawnlight, all of it. Someone needs to finish what he started. Don't, Clara whispered. Daniel met her gaze. You can't silence light, Clara. You said so yourself. He turned and walked away, leaving her standing on the steps. She didn't call after him, didn't try to stop him. What could she say? He was right. She had said those words, though not to him, to the light, to Rains, to herself. Now, the reflection of those words hung in her chest like a curse. When Daniel's figure disappeared down the street, the wind fell still again. Clara looked up at the boarded windows, feeling the hum beneath her skin return, faint, rhythmic, alive. Inside the theater, something shifted, a creak of wood, the sound of film running, faint but unmistakable. She turned toward the door. No, she whispered, not again. But the glow was already forming behind the cracks in the boards, golden and slow, like the breath of something waking from a long, careful sleep. Her reflection in the glass of the ticket booth flickered once and smiled back. Clara stepped away from the door, heart pounding, the realization cutting deep and cold. She hadn't stopped Operation Dawnlight. She had inherited it, and somewhere down the street, a journalist carried a fragment of gold in his pocket, unaware that it wasn't just history he was holding, it was hunger. As the morning sun rose over the quiet town, Clara whispered to the wind, God help him. He doesn't know what light costs. And for the first time, the Liberty's boarded doors pulsed faintly, a heartbeat in the dark. By evening, the town sank into a hush that felt heavier than usual, the kind of quiet that carries too many secrets. The streets were empty. The fog had returned, creeping between lampposts like memory given form. From her window, Clara watched the light of passing cars fade and vanish. Every sound, a dog barking, a distant horn, felt borrowed from another world. She hadn't moved all day. The conversation with Daniel Harper replayed in her head like a reel she couldn't stop. His face, that mixture of curiosity and disbelief, the way he said, "You can't silence light." He didn't understand. He couldn't. Rains had tried to silence it. Shaw had tried to own it, and now Daniel, driven by the same hunger for truth, wanted to expose it. None of them realized that light didn't reveal without taking something in return. When night came, the wind rose. The Liberty loomed across the street, its silhouette darker than the sky behind it. Every few seconds, the boards on the windows rattled faintly, as if the building were breathing again. Clara pressed her palm against the cold windowpane. The faint hum beneath her skin pulsed once steady, familiar. It's still inside you, a voice whispered in her head, soft and calm, though she didn't know whose it was anymore. Hers, Rain's, the woman of light. The reflection in the glass shimmered faintly. For a moment she saw not her own face but the reflection of the Liberty's marquee, glowing faintly through the fog. The letters, long dead, flickered in uneven intervals until one word formed through the static shimmer of neon. Dawn. Her breath fogged the glass. No, it's over. The air behind her shifted a soft vibration, almost like a murmur. She turned sharply, but there was no one. Only the faint sound of her heartbeat echoing through the walls. Then her phone buzzed on the counter, an unknown number. Her stomach twisted. She hesitated before answering. Hello. Static answered first, then a familiar voice, muffled but clear enough to freeze her blood. Miss Reese, it's Daniel Harper. She exhaled shakily. Daniel, it's late. I know. I had to call. Something's happening. Where are you? At my office. Clara, I think you were right. She gripped the phone tighter. What do you mean? The fragment. The gold you gave me, it's reacting to something. I left it on my desk under the lamp, and when I turned the lights off, it started glowing. Her heart lurched. Daniel, listen to me. You need to get rid of it. I can't, he said quickly. It's showing things, faces, like it's projecting without film. There's a woman, her eyes, the line crackled violently. She pressed the phone to her ear, shouting, Daniel, get out of there. It's showing you, Clara. Her breath caught. What? It's showing you in the theater. The line went dead. Clara's hand shook as she lowered the phone. Her pulse pounded in her ears. She stared through the fog at the Liberty, and for a fleeting second she saw it, a faint golden flicker from behind the boards, like a candle flame in the dark. The hum inside her chest deepened, vibrating through her bones. She grabbed her coat and keys, running out the door before she could think twice. The cold hit her like a wall, slicing through her lungs as she crossed the street. When she reached the Liberty, she didn't use the key. The front doors opened at her touch, silent, slow, as if welcoming her back. The air inside was thick with dust and static. Her flashlight flickered, the beam weak and uncertain. She called out, voice trembling, Daniel. Her echo was the only reply. She climbed the stairs to the projection booth. The smell of ozone and decay filled the air, the same scent that had lingered after the explosion of light days earlier. The booth was exactly as she'd left it, except for one thing. The projector was on. It shouldn't have been. The power was cut. The lens glowed faintly, projecting an image onto the blackened screen below. Clara stepped forward, her heart hammering. No. The image was live. Not film, not memory. It was a newsroom, Daniel Harper's office. Papers scattered across his desk. The gold fragment lying in the center, glowing softly. And Daniel himself, sitting motionless in his chair. Daniel,